Hello, today I've been requested by a subscriber to do a video on how to test a throttle pod. A throttle pod is a part that you use to make the scooter go forward and backwards. How do you test this to see if it goes faulty? The scooter will tell you with a flash code that there's a problem with the throttle pod or speed pot. The speed pot is the one that you turn to set the maximum speed that the scooter will actually do. But 9 times out of 10 it is the throttle pod that will go faulty. Okay, so how can you test it that it is this or not the speed pot? So got my multimeter here, we'll connect everything up. There's little connections here. I've got a wee homemade device that I use because when you try to test this you need more than 2 hands, so maybe if you've got a friend handy or some wires or whatever just to hold this together on the multimeter and all that to test. You will need a multimeter that has a resistance, which is that bit here. Mine's already switched on. Now there's so many different multimeters on the market. There's some that I just have a multimeter and you adjust the size of resistance by pressing this button here. There are other ones that the resistance will go, let's say, to 1000 ohms, 5000 ohms, 10,000 ohms. So what you want to set it at is naturally, when you test a potentiometer, is very much higher than the resistance of the potentiometer itself. This particular throttle potentiometer is a 5k pot, so 5000. So if your multimeter has settings on it, you don't want to set it to 2000, you don't want to set it to 5000. If it has that, you want to set it higher, so the next equivalent level on. So if it says 7,500, 10,000, you will set it to 10,000. Okay. These go faulty quite a lot. The usual lifespan of these throttle pods are about 1,000,000 cycles depending on the manufacturers. Let's have a look. This is a Clario Start, either the Cosmos ones. Technically speaking, you can interchange them. Okay, it is recommended to use the original one for it. I have seen on some Shop Rider models, the older versions had these ones and then they used these ones. Different manufacturers have different setups, therefore they have different lengths of shaft, of this rotating shaft here. The throttle pod itself will have numbers on it. Let's have a look. So it usually has, the Cosmos one has a B5 502 5 kilo ohms. So it's a 5k pot. All of the pots that we deal in mobility scooters, bar 1 or 2, are 5k. For instance, the TGA is a slightly different one. Then the Old Town and Country Booster, they were different as well. All the ones that have the forward and a reverse switch on them, they'll not be like this. Okay, because these are slightly manufactured differently. Okay, a Drive Medical throttle pod, its shaft will be different because it's differently set up here. It's a Pride one. This is a faulty one. It is a different bracket assembly for that product there for the shaft, and this one is a little bit shorter. You've got Strider and Days. They're slightly different. They use the Cosmos pot. And there are some of the more modern ones coming in. This particular one's got the shaft has been cut on this particular one because they use a different assembly as well. These are weatherproof, which is quite handy, especially in the UK when it gets wet. So these springs are internal on these particular ones, so when these springs break, you've got to throw this away and buy a new one. Whereas when the springs break on the Shop Rider ones, we can replace them. Technically speaking, the springs in these ones are not available. But what we have done to prevent you from buying the whole assembly, some faulty throttle pods, we've taken the springs off, so we do sell the springs for these ones. There's 3 different types: an open spring, a closed spring, and the Kimco one or the Strider one, because they are very, very much smaller. So if you need springs, give us a bell. There will be a link below to our website, places where you can buy these throttle pods as well, and the springs, etc. So let's go on with testing a new throttle pod. Okay, let's switch the multimeter on to your resistance, to your ohms. Now I've made myself a wee connection here. Makes it easier for putting the terminals in here. So what you do is you put it in the two outside ones, so your orange and your yellow. And that will then give us overall resistance. So you've got 5.9. Now when people set up the resistance on a new throttle pod, you've actually, when you put it in the assembly here, you've actually got to put it at half of that. So if you have a look here, it's more or less straight in line, but it is set with the potentiometer and the resistance that it's got to be in line. So anyway, we're setting at 5.08 kilo ohms. Let's press that. Now I'm going to put one to the middle, okay, and one to the outside, so it's set at 2.66. Now what you need to do is you need to move the wigwag lever very gently, and what's going to happen is it's going to reduce. Now what you want it to do is to reduce without any flat spots, i.e. other numbers coming up and no numbers whatsoever. You don't want that to come up. Okay, so it's going to reduce the way down, 1.5, 1.3. You do it nice and slowly till it hits more or less 0. Okay, and then you go the opposite way and it'll increase right up to what we've done, 5.02. You do it slowly to see if there's any dead spots on it. Okay, no dead spots whatsoever. Just in case you want the scooter to go forward with your left hand and not with your right hand, all you have to do is swap these two wires round, the two outside wires. Okay, that's what you do. Swap these two round and then the scooter will do the opposite. Instead of with your right hand goes forward, the left hand will go forward and vice versa. What can also be done, if your reverse doesn't work for some odd reason and your forward does, what you could do is swap these two wires round about, and then you know for a fact if you press this and the scooter will then go in reverse forward with the reverse lever but won't go in reverse in the back, there's a problem with your motor or controller somewhere at the back there rather than your throttle pod. Okay, so what I'm now going to do is I'm going to do the other side, keep the white one in the middle and do exactly the same. It should be exactly the same as this side. You increase very slowly till it hits your 5.0. Okay, put it right to the center again, and then you increase it or decrease it. So there's no flat spots on this. We know this throttle pod's okay. Now let's see, I think I have one here that is faulty. Where's my wee? Let's just see what the reading is on this one. Now yet again I do the two outside one, which is orange and yellow, to see what the overall resistance is. 4.82. So this is preset 4.82. Let's put it one to the middle. And it doesn't like that. And there's a problem. Oh, hang on a minute. Right. 3. Why is it sitting at 3? Is there anything wrong here? 4. I'm not touching this one. It's moving about everywhere. There's something wrong in here. Let's see. 4, 3, 4, 5. Whoa. This is a faulty one, so you can see what happens on a faulty one. It moves all over the bit as I'm rotating the shaft. Let's see, do it again so you can see me rotating that. 4, 3, 5, 6. So that's what a faulty one will do. It will go all over, or you could have a dead spot. Let's try the other side. You could have a dead spot reading 3.2. Let's move it. Oh, as it says, there's a dead spot there. 7, 6. It shouldn't be 7 ohms. It's a 5k pot. 7,000 ohms. Right, so that's a faulty one. Easy found out when you set up the multimeter. As I say, you need to make sure that if you've got one with settings that you set over 5,000 ohms. So minimum 10, I would say. Okay, this is a throttle pod of a pride. Still a Clavio Mexico pot, 5k pot. But let's have a look inside it, so you don't have to, because once you open it you can more or less bin it. I have seen people put WD-40 in it and they say it's helped it for a small period. I wouldn't recommend to do that. You just, the amount of effort you go into dismantling it, opening it and putting WD-40 on for it to last for a short period of time, it's pointless. Right, let's have a look inside here. Right. Now that's your track here, and there'll be carbon on there. And this is your wiper here. So as you're rotating that, as you can see, this is very, very dirty here. So as I say, some people try and clean it. Don't clean it. You can see here the contact that it's made onto the carbon, and as the cycles go, or they may use a different conductive material to create the resistance, but it does wear after time. And you can see this one's definitely well worn in this stage. Just round about there, you can see it's well worn away. So things don't last forever, sadly to say. And that's what the resistance will be less on this side coming from here to here than it would be if I open the throttle all the way up. And that's what goes faulty. It's still in one piece, but it's wear and tear on the track here that's caused the problem. And that's how it looks inside, so please do not dismantle it and think you're going to put it back together and it'll work. It can be quite dangerous if you do that, because what happens if you let go of the wig-wag lever and you're expecting it to stop, but you've done something inside here, you've touched the tracks together and it doesn't stop? Well, sadly to say, that's a problem you may have. Okay, so hopefully this has helped you to know how to test a throttle pod. And the speed pot's more or less the same. You don't want any dead spots on it. So you do exactly the same thing. So if you enjoyed this, if you'd like to like and subscribe, as I say, there's going to be a link below to where you can buy these throttle pods from. And any questions, feel free to comment below, and have a lovely day. Thank you very much for watching.